On your mark. Get set. Go!
Remember when Nickelodeon taught kids two valuable lessons? 1. Always go for the physical challenge, and 2. Whipped cream is basically industrial glue. Double Dare wasn't just a show. It was a rite of passage for anyone growing up in the late 80s and early 90s. Mark Summers and his sweater and tie, kids getting slimed, and those gloriously ridiculous obstacle courses. It was Nickelodeon's crown jewel before Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy showed up. But here's the thing, for all the nostalgia, there are some facts about Double Dare that are just plain bizarre. From rejected million-dollar sponsorships to slime literally requiring a sewage system, the behind-the-scenes story is as weird as anything on screen. Today, we're counting down 15 weird facts about Double Dare, and stick around because you won't believe the gruesome fact at number 3. But first, hit that like button and subscribe for more trips back to the golden age of kids television. Number 15. Dana Carvey almost hosted. Before Mark Summers became the face of Double Dare, producers had another name in mind. Comedian Dana Carvey. Yeah, the guy who went on to Saturday Night Live fame as Garth from Wayne's World almost spent his days asking kids trivia questions and handing them buckets of slime. Carvey was actually Nickelodeon's first choice. They loved his energy and ability to connect with kids without talking down to them. But when SNL came calling in 1986, offering him a spot on the most prestigious comedy show on television, he turned down Double Dare faster than a kid diving for a flag in chocolate pudding. The producers were reportedly devastated. They'd already started planning sketches around his improvisational style. Just imagine the alternate universe where Garth introduced the obstacle course with "Party time, excellent, and very messy."
It's such a cool word, like, "Hey, Wayne, there's a party tonight."
Cool. Hey, and Garth, babes will be there. Coup d'etat.
Instead of Mark's clean-cut dad energy, we could have had Carvey's manic comedy style. The show might have been completely different, more like kids SNL than a traditional game show. Would the church lady have made guest appearances to judge particularly messy challenges? But hey, at least we got to see Carvey make bank doing impressions instead of getting covered in expired dairy products.
Welcome to Church Chat. I'm the church lady. You know, it's interesting times in America, right? And now we've landed on the exciting presidential matchup between a godless...
Number 14. Moms tried to date Mark Summers. Kids weren't the only ones obsessed with Double Dare. After live shows, Mark Summers got approached by moms. Some of them actually slipped him their phone numbers and told him to call when their husbands weren't home. Others would linger after tapings, asking increasingly personal questions about his, let's say, availability for private appearances. Yeah, the host of a kids game show basically had groupies, and more game than me apparently. Picture this, Mark Summers, the guy who looked like he shopped exclusively at JCPenney, suddenly dealing with suburban moms hitting on him at mall appearances. It was like some weird reverse Mrs. Robinson situation, except instead of seducing college kids, these women were after the guy who handed out Nickelodeon slime. Mark has talked about how awkward these encounters were. He'd be signing autographs for kids, trying to maintain his wholesome image, and suddenly some mom would whisper her phone number in his ear. It got so common that producers had to brief him on handling these situations professionally, basically giving him a crash course in how to reject soccer moms without creating bad PR. Apparently, nothing says irresistible quite like a guy who hands out green slime for a living. Number 13. The first obstacle course was a disaster. Everyone remembers the obstacle course finale, but the very first taping? It was a total disaster. Think Titanic, but with more whipped cream and significantly less icy water. During the pilot taping, a kid had 30 seconds to retrieve a flag buried in a pillow stuffed with feathers, but the crew forgot to place the flag inside. The contestant dug around endlessly, feathers flying everywhere like some kind of poultry explosion at a pillow factory, but they never found what they were looking for because it literally wasn't there. The mishap became part of Double Dare lore and probably the most expensive oops moment in Nickelodeon history. As co-creator Mike Klinghoffer later admitted, their early obstacles were improvised. Classic military obstacle course fare that they knew they'd mess up before dialing in the final messy Rube Goldberg-inspired version. They were basically making it up as they went along, which explains why the first attempt felt more like a military training exercise than the food-based chaos we all remember.
Chocolate mess, don't be afraid to get dirty. There's the first one, and you come. There's the flag. Where is it? There it is. It's stuck to you down to 53 seconds, and you need to get all the way up the Sunday slide. You need to move a little quicker than that. Pull yourself up. Pull up here. Pull up here. You can do it.
The whole production was a learning experience disguised as television. The crew was still figuring out the difference between challenging and impossible, and apparently nobody thought to double-check that the flags were actually in the obstacles before rolling cameras. It was like watching a very expensive game of trial and error, except the errors were broadcast on national television. Nothing says quality television quite like forgetting the most important part of your finale. Number 12, college students went bonkers too. Double Dare quickly broke through the expectation that it was just a kids' game show. It turned college campuses into unofficial fan zones. Within 9 months of its launch, fan clubs had popped up at Cornell and Ohio State, proving that the show's popularity among college students was more than just a fluke. This wasn't your typical so bad it's good ironic viewing either. College students were genuinely invested in watching kids dive face first into pools of green slime. The show somehow tapped into something primal about the college experience. Maybe it was the stress relief of watching someone else get completely messy. Or maybe it was just nostalgia for simpler times when your biggest worry was whether or not to go for the physical challenge. For college students in the late 80s, the same crowd wearing Jam shorts, listening to the Beastie Boys on their Walkmans, and embracing Miami Vice's neon excess, Double Dare hit differently than expected. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was pure escapism from midterms and dating drama. The show bridged childhood memories with adult stress relief, proving that sometimes the best way to deal with college pressure is watching 8-year-olds covered in expired dairy products. Because nothing screams academic achievement like cheering for kids covered in pudding. Number 11. They used past-date food to reduce waste. A typical taping of Double Dare was a feast of chaos. Around 50 gallons of whipped cream, 30 gallons of slime, dozens of eggs, and 100 cubic feet of popcorn were used per episode, according
Viva Las Pancakes. That's what we have over here. Either under the butter, under one of these pancakes is a flag. If you can do all these obstacles in 60 seconds or less, we have a fabulous prize. Right, Harvey?
Two staff tallies shared with the New York Times. Now, that's enough to feed a small army, or at least cater a really messy wedding reception. But to reduce food waste, the production creatively sourced past-date canned or surplus food items. Stuff that was no longer sellable but still safe to use as props. While none of it was spoiled to the point of being hazardous, it was far from appetizing. But that was probably the point. Nobody was supposed to be snacking on obstacle course ingredients anyway. The show turned grocery rejects into televised mess with a conscience. Recycling before recycling was cool. It was an offbeat solution that made environmental sense, even if it meant kids were basically swimming in the same expired whipped cream that grocery stores couldn't legally sell anymore. Parents probably would have freaked out if they'd known, but ignorance was bliss when it came to Double Dare's creative sourcing methods. Who knew environmental consciousness could taste so questionable? Number 10. Gooey obstacles were safer than expected. Despite the gooey appearance of whipped cream, slime, and pudding, Double Dare actually recorded very few serious injuries. There were 2 notable incidents with contestants, one involving a child with brittle bone disease and another slip on an obstacle ladder that caused concern over a possible neck injury. The more surprising hazard was a camera operator slipped on the studio's slick epoxy-coated floor during early tapings and fractured his ankle. After that painful lesson, the production team laid down linoleum to prevent further accidents. So, while the show's safety coordinator designed every messy obstacle with multiple redundancies, it was the boring studio floor that actually sent someone to the hospital. The show had medical personnel on standby at every taping, though they were usually more concerned about allergic reactions than actual injuries. Mark Summers himself probably had more close calls than any contestant. constantly navigating the treacherous floor while trying to maintain his wholesome host persona. Turns out the safest place on set was face first in a tank of green slime. Number 9. 3 tries rule for new challenges. Designing obstacles for Double Dare required NASA-level precision combined with Wile E. Coyote creativity. Every new challenge had to hit that sweet spot. It had to be tough enough to be exciting, but not so impossible that kids would give up and cry on national television, because nothing kills a game show faster than traumatized children and angry networks calling the network. Before any obstacle appeared on air, it faced the unofficial 3 tries rule. Producers would bring in kids from around Philadelphia on non-filming days to test each challenge. If a child could not complete it in 3 attempts, the segment was scrapped entirely. This wasn't just casual testing, it was a ruthless elimination process that would make Darwin proud. Picture the scene. Random Philly kids getting bused to a warehouse, told they're helping to create a TV show, then handed buckets and pointed toward mysterious food-filled contraptions. These weren't professional child actors or even athletic superstars, just regular kids who probably thought they were getting an easy afternoon snack and instead found themselves beta testing television history. The rule was simple but merciless. 3 strikes and you're out. No modifications, no second chances for obstacles that didn't make the cut. If little Tommy from South Philly couldn't retrieve a flag from whatever unholy mess the producers had concocted, the obstacle was dead on arrival. The producers learned quickly that frustrated viewers would turn the channel faster than a kid diving into chocolate pudding. So, technically, Philly kids shaped the very course of Double Dare history, one failed attempt at a time. Every obstacle that made it to air had been conquered by some anonymous local kid who probably never realized they were helping create television history and probably went home covered in mysterious substances that their parents couldn't identify. Nothing says quality control quite like traumatizing local children with impossible food challenges. Number 8. Rejected million-dollar sponsorships. In the Reagan-era capitalism of the 1980s, when corporate sponsorships ruled television and product placement was basically an art form, Nickelodeon could have made millions off Double Dare. We're talking serious money, the kind that would make even Gordon Gekko jealous. Casio offered $1 million to be the official time clock of Double Dare, complete with giant digital displays and product placement that would make every countdown feel like a Casio commercial. Another electronics company offered $1 million for a Double Dare cereal deal. Imagine Double Dare O's or Slime Crunch sitting next to Lucky Charms in grocery store aisles, complete with collectible Mark Summers trading cards that would have been traded like Garbage Pail Kids in every elementary school cafeteria. Then there was the toy company proposal that would have changed everything. A major manufacturer wanted to create an official Double Dare home game set, complete with miniature obstacle courses, slime packets, and yes, Mark Summers action figures. They offered $2 million upfront plus royalties that could have made the show more profitable than some major motion pictures. The marketing department was practically salivating over the possibilities. But here's where Nickelodeon did something almost unthinkable in the corporate sponsorship mad 1980s. They said no to all of it. The network turned down millions because they wanted to keep the show free of corporate branding, believing that blatant commercialism would destroy the pure fun that made Double Dare special. For a kids network still struggling to establish itself, this decision was either brilliant or completely insane. Apparently, even in the 1980s, some people had standards about selling out to breakfast cereal.
Take it from Crinkles. That's me. The best breakfast under the big top is post-sugar rice Crinkles. So crinkly, so delicious, so...
Alright folks, before we dive into our final 7 facts, including some seriously dark secrets that Nickelodeon tried to keep quiet, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. And hey, if you're getting nostalgic for green slime, share this with someone who needs a trip back to childhood. Now, back to some seriously weird Double Dare facts. Number 7. Obstacle course illusion.
You come over here, have a seat right on the floor, Indian style, facing your friends over there. Robin has a cup which she will put on your head.
Remember how the obstacle course looked totally new every episode? How each finale felt like a completely unique challenge that tested contestants' creativity, speed, and tolerance for dairy products? Well, prepare to have your childhood illusions shattered like a piñata filled with expired whipped cream. Here's the trick that fooled an entire generation. The obstacle course wasn't actually different each time. It was the same basic set of obstacles, just rearranged, reordered, and edited to create the illusion of variety. Producers simply moved the starting positions, had kids begin at different obstacles, or, and this is the really clever part, ran the entire course backward. The Sunday slide that seemed new and exciting in episode 47, it was the same slide from episode 12, just approached from a different angle. That pie in your pants obstacle that looked so fresh and innovative, they'd used it 6 times before, but clever camera work and editing made it seem brand new. It was basically the television equivalent of your mom serving leftover meatloaf but calling it gourmet beef surprise. As kids who were glued to our TV sets after school, we thought every finale was a unique snowflake of slime and chaos. As adults scrolling through YouTube compilations, we realized it was Nickelodeon smoke and mirrors at its finest. Television magic that was somehow more impressive for being fake. The show's creators understood that perception was more important than reality, and they engineered that perception with the precision of a Swiss watch covered in chocolate pudding. Turns out the real obstacle was figuring out we'd been watching the same stuff over and over again. Number 6, Mark Summers faced his worst nightmare daily. Now here's the ultimate irony of Double Dare. The host of the messiest show on television was living with obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Can't even imagine. So tell us about OCD. How did it impact your daily life as a host on Double Dare and also before?
Well, when we auditioned for the show, there was no mess, okay?
Mark Summers has been open about his OCD struggle long before he stepped onto that slime stage, which means every single day of filming was basically his personal hell disguised as children's entertainment. Picture this. You're someone whose brain is wired to need order, cleanliness, and control, and your job involves standing next to syrupy walls, mountains of whipped cream, and 8-foot-tall mixmasters filled with mystery substances. Summers admitted he nearly walked away when he first saw the set, which honestly makes perfect sense when you realize he was being asked to host a show inside his worst anxiety nightmare. But Mark didn't run away screaming. Instead, filming became a daily test of nerves where he had to push through his compulsions and maintain his professional composure while surrounded by chaos. The man was literally fighting a mental health battle while asking kids if they wanted to take the physical challenge, somehow managing to make it look effortless. It's perhaps the most human moment behind all the chaos. Double Dare might have slathered kids in slime for entertainment, but for Mark, every episode was a lesson in facing what's far messier than any obstacle course: his own mind. Talk about earning your paycheck the hard way. Number 5, Double Dare was the OG Nickelodeon game show. Long before Legends of the Hidden Temple had kids screaming at their TVs about temple guards, before Nick Arcade made everyone wish they could jump into video games, and way before any of the wobbling wet chaos that followed, there was Double Dare, the very first game show to grace the Nickelodeon airwaves. Now yes, You Can't Do That on Television had already introduced the world to Nickelodeon's signature green slime, but that was just kids getting dunked for saying I don't know. Double Dare took that concept and said, hold my expired whipped cream, turning slime from punishment into prize. Instead of accidentally triggering a bucket drop, kids were diving headfirst into obstacle courses filled with the stuff. When Double Dare premiered on October 6th of 1986, it absolutely exploded across cable television.
Stop! Hi, I'm Mark Summers, and what you saw is the way every episode of Double Dare begins. And
within its first month, viewership in the afternoon block more than tripled, making it the most watched original daily programming on cable. Kids abandoned their after-school cartoons of DuckTales, Inspector Gadget, the whole Disney afternoon block, to watch other kids get covered in mystery substances. Double Dare turned Nickelodeon into a game show factory practically overnight. Titles like Legends of the Hidden Temple, Nick Arcade, Guts, Wild and Crazy Kids, and Figure It Out all followed in its slime-soaked footsteps, each trying to capture that same magic formula of controlled chaos. Who knew that watching kids dive face-first into whipped cream would become the blueprint for an entire generation's entertainment? Number 4, the set had its own sewage system. The chaos of Double Dare went way beyond slime. We're talking engineering-level cleanup That would make a municipal wastewater plant jealous. When production shifted to Nickelodeon's Orlando studio, the set included a purpose-built drainage system designed specifically for the show's unique waste management needs. This wasn't your typical TV studio cleanup situation. Rather than dealing with messy floors by hand like some kind of medieval torture, crew members would literally mop everything into specialized grates rigged specifically for slime disposal. Picture an industrial kitchen's drainage system, except instead of grease and food scraps, it was handling gallons of green slime mixed with expired dairy products and whatever unholy combinations the obstacle designers had dreamed up that week. The scale of the cleanup operation was absolutely insane. The clean team alone went through 600 to 1,000 towels per taping, according to Mental Floss. That's not a typo. They were burning through enough towels to stock a small hotel laundry service just to keep up with one episode's worth of mess. Imagine the poor intern whose job was restocking the towel supply, knowing full well they'd all be slime-soaked disasters by the end of the day. It wasn't just about keeping up appearances, it was about keeping the show functionally operational. Working with live slime, whipped cream, and gooey obstacle residue meant the plumbing had to perform like a small wastewater treatment station. Regular TV studio drainage would have clogged faster than a VCR eating your rental copy of The Breakfast Club, bringing the whole production to a sticky, disgusting halt. That specialized drainage system may not be the stuff of TV legend, but it was the unsung hero that allowed Double Dare to do what no other kids show had dared to do before. Literally flood a studio with food products on a daily basis and somehow keep the cameras rolling.
You got 7 seconds. Get in there, get that flag. Get in there. Get the flag, get the flag. Get the flag. Pass it on. Okay, time is up. Time is up. Nice job. Let's hear it for.
Because apparently making kids TV required the same infrastructure planning as a small city. Number 3. Gruesome Injury with a settlement. Now, for the most part, Double Dare was a surprisingly safe place to get slimed. Kids would emerge from obstacle courses covered in goo, but otherwise unharmed, ready to tell their friends about their 15 minutes of slimed fame. The show's safety protocols were actually more rigorous than most playground equipment of the era. But there was one freak accident that still makes producers wince when they think about it. A contestant broke their arm during an obstacle run badly. So badly, in fact, that the bone punctured through the skin, a compound fracture, right on camera. The injury was immediately visible, traumatic enough that other kids on set started crying, and severe enough to require emergency medical attention. Now, here's where the story gets really complicated. Turned out that the child had a brittle bone condition, something that the parents had failed to disclose on the application. This wasn't just an oversight, it was a deliberate omission of crucial medical information that could have prevented the entire incident. The parents knew their child was at risk for serious fractures from any significant physical activity, but they wanted their kid on television badly enough to lie about it. According to multiple sources, the child's father was a lawyer who later asked Nickelodeon for compensation, not in cash, but in the form of a television prize. And that's exactly what the show gave him. Imagine suffering a traumatic injury that required surgery and months of recovery and getting compensated with a TV and some electronics. The legal settlement was as bizarre as it was quietly handled. The story faded quietly, never making headlines or becoming part of Double Dare lore, but behind the scenes, it became the cautionary tale that changed how applications were processed. The case was sealed, the family signed non-disclosure agreements, and Nickelodeon made sure the incident never appeared in any official show documentation. On Double Dare, it turns out the real danger wasn't the slime, it was what the parents didn't tell you. Number 2. Kids could always avoid looking stupid.
Take the physical challenge.
Physical challenge.
Beverly Hills Cop 2, Eddie Murphy was the man, and let's do a physical challenge for Sarah and Brett right over here. Right over here, Sarah. Brett.
Here's something brilliant about Double Dare that you probably never thought about as a kid. The show was specifically designed so that no kid would ever have to feel stupid for not knowing an answer. While other game shows turned wrong answers into public humiliation, Double Dare had a revolutionary solution. Just get messy instead. The show's creators wanted a game that wouldn't make kids feel like failures for not being trivia whiz kids. This led to the unique format where teams could choose to take a physical challenge instead of answering a question, allowing them to win without needing to know obscure facts about geography or history. The kind of stuff that made Jeopardy feel like advanced calculus to anyone under 16.
8th.
All right, and Brett has a record collection. What kind of records?
Old, recent, whatever.
Whatever. Has several, I understand. You have $20 as well.
It was genius. Instead of going home feeling dumb, kids could go home covered in slime and feeling like champions. If a team couldn't answer a question or got double dared by their opponents, they faced a messy, timed challenge that was part carnival game, part food fight. These could involve catching pies in oversized clown pants, filling containers past a line with green slime or whipped cream, or creating a human taco by dumping ingredients onto a teammate wearing a giant taco shell. Other challenges included shooting plungers to release gack, finding objects hidden in food dishes, or navigating obstacles with increasingly ridiculous movements. The beauty of it was that these challenges had nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with being willing to look absolutely ridiculous on television. A lot of the food was expired anyway, waste reduction disguised as entertainment, so kids were basically diving into grocery store rejects while their parents cheered on from the audience. It was a completely different philosophy from traditional game shows, where wrong answers meant you walked away empty-handed and embarrassed. On Double Dare, wrong answers just meant you got to participate in controlled chaos and still had a chance to win by successfully catching flying food or filling buckets with mystery substances. Who knew that the secret to making kids feel confident was giving them permission to get absolutely disgusting instead of pretending to be geniuses? Number 1, it was inspired by a board game. And finally, the weirdest fact of all was that Double Dare's entire concept was inspired by the board game Mousetrap.
Hey, give that back! Mouse trouble? Then you need Mousetrap! Mousetrap! I guarantee it's the craziest trap you'll ever see! The first to capture every...
That's right. The whole idea of kids completing messy Rube Goldberg-style challenges grew out of a board game most kids never finished playing. You know Mousetrap, right? That impossibly complicated contraption designed to catch a plastic mouse that never worked because your brother lost crucial pieces. The show's creators wanted something that captured hands-on childhood play excitement. During brainstorming, someone mentioned Mousetrap as a game more about experience than winning. That sparked the realization that kids would love television that felt like playing with life-size toys, and it's the ultimate nostalgia mashup. Toys we played at home literally shaped the show we loved on TV. Mousetrap, famous for never working right, inspired a show famous for controlled chaos and perfectly orchestrated mess. So, basically, Double Dare was just Mousetrap that actually worked and covered everyone in pudding. And there you have it. 15 weird facts about Double Dare, the sloppiest, slimiest, most unforgettable kids game show of all time. From Dana Carvey almost hosting, to Nickelodeon turning down millions, to slime literally requiring its own sewage system, it's clear Double Dare was bigger, weirder, and messier than we ever knew.
Yeah.
I feel great.
How about you?
Awesome.
Awesome! We want to say thank you for being with us on Double Dare. We had a super time as always. I hope you enjoyed it half as much as we did. Join us often. Thanks for being with us again. Bye-bye.
But we want to hear from you. Did you watch Double Dare growing up? Did you ever dream of running the obstacle course? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more trips back to the golden age of kids TV.